Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting bonus episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Elder Bean. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, today we're going to be looking at Doctor Who and an Unearthly Child from 1963. But before I get into all of that and more, I want to do housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean, especially if I'm having the first Doctor around, William Hartnell. I've got to keep things spick and span, and you can help me do that by the following. If you are listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave me a 5-star review and to follow me on Spotify. Also, if you want to check out more things from me on TikTok or Instagram, just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you can find a lot more shorter form content there. So I am a bit nervous about this one, to be honest, because to tell you the truth, I'm on virgin ground. I don't know what to do or what to expect. I can plan as far as ahead as I can, but when it comes of actually starting the beginning and talking about anything like this, it's all relatively new to me. And the reason being is the fact of, even though I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, as I've said before, and as I said leading up to this, I haven't really watched many classic Doctor Who, especially anything black and white. You know, the oldest I've ever been is Tom Baker, and I haven't gone any sort of older than that, to be honest. And it's a bit scary, a bit apprehensive, because I want to get it right and I want to do these characters, which is part of a franchise that I widely love, justice, but it is going to be a little bit scary. So what I've decided to do, instead of having these as mainstay episodes, I'm going to do them as bonus episodes, right? So what my plans are for this review is that I'm going to review the first 3 episodes of the original run of the first series from like the 60s of William Hartnell, right? I'm going to review them separately, kind of like in the same format I would do a review normally, and then I'm going to watch or listen, because as I've mentioned before, anybody that doesn't know, a lot of William Hartnell's series episodes I'm missing. And after the first 2, so the first 2 episodes are The Unearthly Child, The Daleks, and Edge of Destruction. After that, I believe it's Marco Polo, which is lost. And I have listened to that audio before, and I have got the audio books to listen to it. And what I might do, to be honest, thinking about it now while I'm recording, I'll probably listen to, say, Marco Polo. And then if you follow me on TikTok and Instagram, I'll probably do a review of that story singular on there. So that kind of gives you more reason to follow me there. But also, because it's one of those where I won't have a lot to say about it. So it'll be easier in a shorter form sort of content, kind of make it condensed, instead of prolonging it as I am with these bonus episodes. So again, gives you more reason to follow me there. So that is kind of my plan, really, is that I'm going to watch the episodes that I can watch, review the first 3 properly, do small reviews for the other episodes elsewhere, and then once I've watched every single episode of every season of William Hartnell, then I'm going to do a huge podcast episode where I talk about my thoughts and feelings on William Hartnell, about his companions, his stories, my favourite stories, kind of like I do when I reviewed series like 2 of like the Doctor and Rose, the 10th Doctor and Rose, and I think I also did it for 9 and Rose as well. Same sort of format, and again, like I did for Torchwood. So that's the kind of basis and idea. But like I said, I am a bit worried about this one because I want to do his character justice, and I want to do William Hartnell justice because he was a brilliant actor, and yeah, so I'm kind of a bit scared, but I'm also really excited. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea and a lowdown of how this is going to go. And I feel like as these bonus episodes come out once a month for the next 3 months, include obviously beginning here for the next 2 months, obviously, that people will start to kind of get a hang of what it is I'm trying to do, and obviously stick around and. If I get anything wrong, please do bear with me. Or, if you've got any pointers, if you're a big Doctor Who fan and you know a lot of the classics and you want to point me in the right direction of, how to think of things or do things or whatever, I'm all up for feedback. So again, let me know down below in the comments. So, I want to read the story synopsis for anybody who is new. So I've got the DVD here. It goes as follows. So, Doctor Who, An Unearthly Child by Anthony Coburn, the first ever story of the world's longest running science fiction series, comes to DVD for the first time. Susan Foreman is a mystery to teachers Ian and Barbara, seemingly knowing more than she should about the past and the future. Their curiosity leads them to follow her home one night, only to find that her home appears to be a deserted junkyard. In the junkyard, they discover a police telephone box and a strange old man who claims to be Susan's grandfather and calls himself the Doctor. The journey of a lifetime is about to begin. So that is the synopsis. What I also love about this DVD that I've got as well, it comes with loads of special features. So I just want to talk and rattle on about the special features that comes with it. So it comes with 3 commentaries. So you've got the pilot episode, which is studio recording with Verity Lambert and Warwick Huss, because there was a pilot episode that was recorded, which I don't believe went out. I think that was like a test screening. I think I'm almost like probably 95% sure. Then you've got episode 1, which is an Unearthly Child with William Russell, Caroline Amford, and Verity Lambert. Then episode 4, The Firemaker with William Russell, Carol Amford, and Warwick Huss. And it goes into more detail. Before Doctor Who, William Russell was best known for his portrayal of Sir Lancelot in the TV series The Adventures of Sir Lancelot from 1956 to 57. Russell's portrayal of chemistry teacher Ian proved an ideal foil for William Hartnell's Doctor, and his time with the series stretched from the first episode, An Earthly Child, in 1963, through to the Dalek story, The Chase, in 1965. After leaving Doctor Who, Russell found himself in constant demand on stage and screen, appearing in productions as diverse as Coronation Street and the Royal Shakespeare Company plays. Carol Ann Ford played the Doctor's granddaughter Susan from the show's first episode, An Earthly Child, through to the Dalek invasion of Earth in 1964, becoming the first member of the TARDIS crew to leave the series. She went on to make a number of film appearances before leaving the acting profession to concentrate on her family. She returned to acting in 1983, appearing as Susan in Doctor Who's 20th anniversary story, The Five Doctors. Verity Lambert was chosen by BBC head of drama Sidney Newman to be Doctor Who's first producer after she had worked with him as a production secretary on Armchair Theatre at ABC. After working for 2 years on Doctor Who, she moved on to pursue Adamant Lives. Leaving the BBC for freelance work, she became either a producer or executive producer on a number of British TV's most significant and acclaimed programmes. Her credits include The Naked Civil Servant, Rock Foley's, Quatermass, Minder, The Flame Trees of Takar, GBH, Sleepers, Boys from the Bush, El Dorado, and Jonathan Creek. I love Jonathan Creek. She was awarded the OBE in January 2002 in recognition of her services to film and television. And then you got Warwick Huss, career as a BBC staff director, began in the early 1960s, working on programmes such as Compact and Moonstrike. He joined the Doctor Who team just as a number of story rewrites and production difficulties ensured that a director was needed to oversee the series' first 4-part story into production. He only returned to the series once more to direct 6 of the 7 episodes of the programme's 4th story, Marco Polo, which is lost sadly. His directing skills saw him much in demand in the years that followed, both on television and on the big screen in England and in America. Then it goes on to talk a little bit about the pilot episode, an unedited 35-minute recording of the entire studio session for the untransmitted pilot episode, including studio clock and all the retakes, can be viewed with an optional commentary by producer Verity Lambert and director Warwick Huss. Pilot episode, An Earthly Child, an edited 25-minute version of the untransmitted pilot, An Unearthly Child, a look at how all the studio recording material would have been best fitted together if this version had been chosen as suitable for transmission as the programme's opening episode. Theme music video, an opportunity to hear the full-length version of the original Doctor Who theme music, coupled with the original 1963 title sequence visual elements, can be viewed in 3 different versions, mono, stereo, or 5.1 audio's mix. Comedy sketches, this is a strange one. So it comes with a selection of 4 short sketches, mostly themed around the early years of Doctor Who, from Mark Gatiss, The League of Gentlemen, and David Walliams, Little Britain. Come 3 sketches from the BBC Doctor Who Night in 1999, The Pitch of Fear, The Web of Caves, and The Kidnappers. Meanwhile, the Corridor sketch offers a glimpse at how early Doctor Who may have looked with a different actor in the title role. The production subtitles. Subtitles provide the viewer with cast details, script development, and other information related to the production of Unearthly Child, and then just a photo gallery. I will probably check them out before I do my review. So that, and I feel like all of the DVDs come with these special features. Yes, they do. Some of them have got more than others on, especially The Edge of Destruction has absolutely tons on. So what I'll probably do, I'll probably watch through a lot of the special features before I do my actual review, just kind of get a good idea of what's going on with the story and all that jazz. Even the comedy sketches, that sounds a lot of fun, especially if it's got Mark Gatiss, because I love A League of Gentlemen. Anyway, so that is what's on the back of the box. As for a bit of production notes, because I find it quite interesting to look into how this thing was produced, it being like the first episode and all. So, the conception. So, in March 1963, BBC Television's controller programming Donald Baverstock informed head of drama Sidney Newman of a gap in the schedule on a Saturday evening between the sports showcase grandstand and the pop music program Jukebox Jury. Baverstock figured that the program should appeal to free audiences, children who had previously been accustomed to viewing television during the time slot, the teenage audience of Jukebox Jury, and the adult sports fan audience of Grandstand. Newman decided that a science fiction program should fill the gap. Head of the script department, Donald Wilson, and writer C.E. Weber contributed heavily to the formatting of the program and co-wrote the program's first format document with Newman. The latter conceived the idea of a time machine larger on the inside than the outside, as well as the central character of the mysterious Doctor and the name Doctor Who. Production was initiated several months later and handed to producer Verity Lambert, the BBC's first female drama producer, and story editor David Whittaker to oversee after a brief period when the show had been handled by a caretaker producer, Rex Tucker. Casting and characters. In Weber's original production documents, the character of the Doctor, referred to as Doctor Who, was a superstitious and malign character who hated scientists and inventors and had a secret intention to destroy or nullify the future. Newman rejected this idea, wanting the character to be a father figure. Tucker offered the role of the Doctor to Hugh David, having spent a year working on Knight Errant Limited and not wanting to be tied to another series. David turned down the role. Tucker envisioned a young actor to play the Doctor with aged-up makeup. However, Lambert favoured an older actor to avoid preparation time and add authenticity to the role. The part was turned down by actors Leslie French, Cyril Cusack, Alan Webb, and Jeffrey Belladon. Cusack and Webb were reluctant to work for a year on a series, while Belladon wished to avoid another old man role. Lambert and director Warwick Huss invited William Hartnell to play the role. After several discussions, Hartnell accepted, viewing it as an opportunity to take his career in a new direction. The Doctor's companions were originally named Bridget or Bindi, a 15-year-old girl eager for life. Her teachers were Miss Lola McGovern, a 24-year-old timid woman capable of sudden courage, and Cliff, a physically perfect, strong and courageous man. Bridget was renamed Susan to Suzanne Foreman, later changed to Susan, and writer Anthony Coburn made her the Doctor's granddaughter to avoid any possibility of sexual inappropriacy in having a young girl travelling with an older man. Newman was reluctant about the idea as he wanted the character to have human naivety. Miss McGovern later became history teacher Miss Channing, and Susan's birth name briefly became, I can't pronounce this one, Finder Couler? Whatever. Anyway, when the show's Bible was written, the two teachers were renamed into Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright. Chesterton was much more violent in earlier drafts of the script. William Russell was chosen to portray Ian, being the only actor considered by Lambert to do so. Tucker held auditions for the roles of Susan and Barbara on the 25th of June 1963. Actress Christina Bergman and Anne Casadalinte, Marie Kobe and Heather Fleming, Camilla Haas and Waverly Lee, Anna Palk, Anna Wills, who later played companion Polly, were all considered for the role of Susan, while Sally Home, Philippa Law, and Penelope Lee were considered for Barbara. Following Tucker's departure from the production, Lambert was in talks with actress Jacqueline Lenya to play Susan, but the role was ultimately given to Carol Ann Ford, a 23-year-old who typically played younger roles. Lambert's friend Jacqueline Hill was chosen to play Barbara. As for the writing, so the program was originally intended to open with a serial entitled The Giants, written by Webber, but was scrapped by June 1963 as the technical requirements of the storyline, which involved the leading characters being drastically reduced in size, were beyond their capabilities, and the story itself lacked the necessary impact for an opener. Due to the lack of scripts ready for production, the untitled second serial from Colburn was moved to first in the running order. The order change necessitated rewriting the opening episode of Coburn's script to include some introductory elements of Webber's script for the first episode of The Giants. Coburn also made several insignificant original contributions to the opening episode, most notably that the Doctor's time machine should resemble a police box, an idea that he conceived after seeing a real police box while walking near his office. So that's writing. As for filming, so the show remained unnamed in April 1963, simply referred to as the Saturday Serial. It was provisionally scheduled to begin recording on the 5th of July to be aired on the 27th of July, but was delayed. A pilot recording was scheduled to begin filming on the 19th of July. If successful, it could be broadcast on the 24th of August. Production was later deferred for a further 2 weeks while scripts were pre-prepared, and the recording on the 9th of July was rescheduled as a test session for the dematerialization effect of the TARDIS. The show's initial broadcast date was pushed back to the 9th of November, with the pilot recording scheduled for the 27th of September and regular episodes made from the 18th of October. The broadcast date was soon pushed back to the 16th of November due to the BBC's athletics coverage in July, pushing subsequent Saturday transmissions back a week, and later to 23rd of November. The show was granted a budget of, this is not a lot of money by the way, £2,300 per episode, equivalent to, well, equivalent to today's money. That's about £42,000 if you look at inflation as of 2025, with an additional £500 for the construction of the TARDIS, equivalent to about £9,100 in 2025. Tucker was originally scheduled as a series director, but the task was assigned to Hussein following Tucker's departure from production. Some of the pre-filmed inserts for the serial, shot at Ealing Studios in September and October 1963, were directed by Hussein's production assistant Douglas Camfield. The first version of the opening episode was recorded at Lime Grove Studios on the evening of the 27th of September 1963. Following a week of rehearsals, however, the recording was bedeviled with technical errors, including the doors leading into the TARDIS control room failing to close properly. After viewing the episode, Newman ordered that it be mounted again. During the weeks between the two tapings, changes were made to costuming, effects, performances, and scripts. The second attempt at the opening episode was recorded on the 18th of October, with the following 3 episodes being recorded weekly from the 25th of October to the 8th of November. Recording for the 5 episodes, including the pilot, cost a total of £13,693,000, which Lambert noted was within the program's budget, which sounds like a lot of money, which it really, really was back then. But when you look at it for inflation, it's actually quite a bit of money, probably considering how much Doctor Who's made for now, especially with the Disney money that they had during like the latest series. Quite very interesting. Oh, this one's quite interesting. So, themes analysis. So, scholar Mark Bold discusses how the serial establishes Doctor Who's socio-political stances in his 2008 essay, Science Fiction Television in the United Kingdom. He writes, the story represents the separation/reunion, capture/escape, pursuit/evasion that will dominate the next 26 years, as well as the programme's consistent advocacy of the BBC's political and social libertarianism. He cites Ian and Barbara's attempt to teach a cavewoman kindness, friendship, and democracy, writing, a tyrant is not as strong as the whole tribe acting collectively. Scholar John R. Cook reflected in 1999 that the presence of teachers as companions echoes Doctor Who's original educational remit. Malcolm Pelute of the New Science noted in 1982 that the serial was set in the Stone Age because the show's original intention was to bring to life the Earth's history. Lawrence Mills and Tat Wood argue that the cavemen's focus on fire is meant to stand in for all technology, thus linking the latter 3 episodes with the questions of general change raised by the first episode and its focus on superstition of children, and tying that to a discussion of technological process, including the nuclear bomb. They also argue that contrary to the tendency to treat the story as a one-off episode introduction to the series followed by 3 episodes of running around and escaping, that the piece should be considered as a single dramatic whole that is, and I quote, about making 4 people who barely know one another learn to trust each other, end quote. So that is your lot for production. And one thing I do want to know, which I love this bit at the back, it says this on the back of the disc. It goes, this story was originally broadcast on BBC One between the 23rd of November till the 14th of December 1963. Because again, it was a weekly thing, these episodes were. It's not like with Doctor Who now where you get like 1 episode a week. And it's like just 1 single episode, then the next week it's a brand new episode, brand new characters, monsters, that sort of thing. Back in the day with Doctor Who, 1 episode would span weeks. So it would be split up. So you'd watch 1 episode 1 week and then be like, tune in next week to find out what happens next. And you tune in next week and then that would be the continuation. And then some serials, some stories are longer than others because of this. And that's why there's so many episodes missing, because it's not, it's individual episodes, weekly episodes. Well, I guess some of them, all episodes are missing, but for most of them, it's like, we have this, we have that, but we're missing like episode 4 out of 5, so it's almost finished. So little things like that, which again, I think that's interesting about Doctor Who lore, really, if you think about it, how the fact that at the time, even though it was, a loved show and it was successful, well, the beginning it was anyway, that the first 2 episodes, they didn't care. They just, the BBC just recorded over them. It was like, oh, we've got this old Doctor Who episode, it's all right. It's already been out. We'll just record over it, or we'll raise what's on it and put something new on it. And it just kind of gets me how there was no love or care of a lot of these things, but I'm glad that the first few episodes were able to be archived and saved, and so we can watch them and enjoy them today. So that is basically all I have to say now. I'm going to go off and watch this episode. I'm excited, I'm apprehensive, I've got my fingers crossed, I don't really know what to think. I really hope that I fall in love with William Hartnell, because I don't want to, watch this and go, oh, he's not my favourite, you know what I mean? And I think it's going to take me a bit of time. I might fall in love with him straight away. I might not. Like, at the end of the day, I fell in love with David Bradley playing a version of William Hartnell, playing a version of the First Doctor, and I was crying when I watched that movie. So if another actor can make me fall in love with a different actor and a Doctor, then I'm sure that the real Hartnell can make me fall in love with him. I have no doubt. Who knows what will happen in the first episode? It might not be till I get to the Daleks or the Edge of Destruction or later on, but I'm sure it'll happen eventually. I've got my fingers crossed. So I'm going to go off and watch Unearthly Child, and then when we come back, give you my first impressions, we'll talk about the story, some overall thoughts, maybe a bit of trivia if I can find any, and then we'll wrap things up nicely. So I'll see you all in a second. And welcome back, everyone. So I do hope you went off and you watched Unearthly Child on BBC iPlayer, or if you had it on DVD like I did, you rewatched it with me. First impressions, I'm generally impressed. And what I'm impressed for is that I went in expecting nothing. I went in worried, to be honest, mostly because I didn't know how I was going to feel with William Hartnell as a Doctor, because again, I'd never experienced him before, and as well, going in, meeting a new Doctor is always a bit of a scary thing because you never know if you're going to gel with them or not, and it's the same with the companions. So I went in with being a bit trepidatious, I was a bit worried, I was a bit sort of unsure, but honestly, after episode 1, all fears went out the window. And I know with classic Doctor Who, it's a lot more longer form. So like with modern Doctor Who, you get like one episode and it's like, that's it. And then the next week it's a new episode, new monster, new mission, whatever. And then so on and so forth. Whereas like with the older episodes, it was more sort of formulaic, whereas like it was continuous week by week by week story. And then after like a few weeks, that story would be over than the next one. So I knew that going into it. I knew it was going to split up and stop at certain points. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy William Hartnell. At first, he seems a little bit sort of, not stuck up, but he seems a little bit sort of like, who are you? Go away. I'm not interested. And like he kidnaps them, which gets me. It was like, well, unlike, he invites them on, he just kidnaps Ian and Barbara, and they, like they're gone back in time, which I do want to talk about the time period and the setting. I think it's very, very clever, to tell you the truth, but we'll get there in a minute. But like he kidnaps them, and I thought, okay, that's a weird way. But also I love the fact of Ian and Barbara are teachers. They're not just sort of your run-of-the-mill sort of average, ordinary human. They're teachers, which is also good as well, because that adds to the whole point of the show, is the show is meant to be educational. And as well, Susan, she's 15, but she is a girl out of time. So even though she's incredibly clever, she doesn't know the mannerisms. It's kind of like the fact of, I'm 28 now, but I have no idea what 6'7" and all this other stuff that kids are coming out. I'm not down with the kids anymore. I'm not down with the trumpets. I have no idea what any of this slang means. But if you plonk me back in like the early to late sort of like 2010s, I knew everything what was going on because I was in school then. So it's the same thing with Susan. She's getting plonked down where she's super smart from, like, I think she said like 49th century, I think she said. So she's like super smart, but the problem is when it comes down to how the money works or how slang or certain things work here and there, she just can't gel with it. Is because she's not from here. She doesn't know how things work here. She knows the science and the history, but that's about it. So I like that fish out of water sort of thing. But it also goes to add to the fact that we have Ian and Barbara, where they are sort of companions that are caring because they're teachers. They care about Susan. They care about her welfare, which then is going to be interesting to see how that carries on in the next sort of few episodes of which they're in, which I'm sort of looking forward to. So first impressions, I was generally surprised that I liked it as much as I did. It was a bit of a sort of surprise shock. Oh my God, actually, this is pretty good. Because like I said, I'm used to watching old movies anyway. Because again, I'm going to my grandparents. I'm used to watching black and white movies. I'm used to watching old black and white TV shows because my granddad used to watch them all the time on TV. So it's not anything new to me. I guess if you're not used to that might be a little bit jarring. But for me, it was quite easy. And actually, like I've said many times, I like a black and white movie or black and white TV show, mostly because, and I've said this before, they shot on film. None of it was digital. So they rehearsed it. It's like being on a play. They rehearse it and set it out all the time, constantly, over and over and over again, rehearsing. So by the time that they're filming, they've got it down to an art, to a clockwork. They know the mannerisms. They know what to do, where to go, sort of thing. So when you're watching a black and white movie or TV show, it's like watching a play. You know what I mean? It's so choreographed so well. I'm not saying they don't do it nowadays with movies. It's just the fact older movies, I just feel like they're a lot more sort of streamlined, because everybody knew what they were doing and saying, even though there was a little bit of a fudge of lines here and there, it's so quickly sort of caught, and then as if like you never fudged it, you just say it again, or you say it in a way of like it's in tune with the character. In this version that I watched, it comes with the pilot episode. I didn't realize I watched the pilot episode because I just pressed play all, and so it played the first episode. The first episode, and then I thought to myself, okay, so the first episode's been played, which was, hold on, let me get the little thing out, An Unearthly Child. And then it goes like officer of a lift, the offer of a lift, the doctor, inside the TARDIS, prisoners, and then credits. I'm watching, this is interesting. And then when that one ends, it started again. And I thought, hold on a second, why did it do that? So I went back to the scene select and I realized I watched the pilot. So I watched the beginning twice. And I couldn't spot many differences. Like there were a few mistakes here and there in the pilot one, which was refined in the sort of main episode. But I like that bit of history there. Again, second episode, which was the Cave of Skulls. I love that. Again, New World watched, Make Fire, Danger for the Doctor, credits. Then you had The Forest of Fear, The Old Woman, Escape, Help, A New Leader, credits. And then the final episode, The Firemaker, New Tribe, Set Us Free, Fight, The Way Out, and then credits. And I really enjoyed each episode. I did. I thought each episode was really good, streamlined, fantastic. I do want to talk about the time period as well. So I think the time period was very clever, because if you come to think of it, how best again, because this whole sort of story reminded me of Rose in a way, because what Rose does is that it introduces you not only to the Doctor, but the idea and concept of Doctor Who, of what you're going to expect going forwards. It also introduces you to the companion first. Before you meet the Doctor, you meet the companions first. Again, i.e., Susan, Barbara, Ian, who are mostly the driving force, and then you meet the Doctor, and then you got to go on an adventure. Obviously, with Rose, it's the Autons. With this, it's cavemen, but still, it works. But you have to think of it in the eyes of like 1963, where there's no such thing as Doctor Who yet. What's the best way to convey to an audience, and also to Ian and Barbara as well, that a time machine about what's going on? You either do one or two things. You either go into the far, far future, or you go to the prehistoric far, far past. The reason being is the fact of, if you go in the far past or in the far future, things will be so alien and different that you won't be able to relate to it in modern times. And it's not just like now, 2026. It's the same if you did it in 1963, or you did it in like 2025. I mean, not 2025. If you did like 2225, that sort of thing. If you did it then, and then went further into the future, no matter how far back that you went, and whenever your first period was set, it will still be alien to you, because things have moved on. Things are always moving on. Humans are always evolving and changing and inventing things. So that's the best way to do it. Obviously, in this one, they go back in time. You see the cavemen, and it's completely different. It's pretty alien. No one's got cars anymore. It's wild. Everyone's wearing pelts. They've missing teeth. They speak ugly, like this. You make fire, me make fire. That's my man. That's my woman. You go get meat, sort of thing. Everything is just like an adjective, just a thing. You there, me here. So it's so alien to the audience. So when Ian and Barbara first come out of the TARDIS, and they're like, they're somewhere different, it's like, what's happened? And Ian, he's freaking out. He's like, well, none of this makes sense, because he's a science teacher, right? But he's a science teacher of the 1960s, whereas like science now has moved on, and like it's a lot more less, probably it's theoretical, but probably more or less, shall we say, theoretical than it was back in the 60s. Like now that we feel like it's potentially possible to go into the future, not back into the future. And obviously we know that, about space-time as well, and light speed, that if you went a certain distance away from Earth and then turned around and pointed a powerful telescope at Earth, there's a potentiality that you could see the dinosaurs or the Romans, even though when you left, it was like 2026. If you turned around and looked, you'd see dinosaurs and Romans, because there is a reason, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But the point is, there are these theories that we have now in terms of science, but you got to think a man during like 1963, the science that he was taught was very sort of matter of fact. This is real, that's not real. So him going back in time and being somewhere where he shouldn't be, where it's not possible, is a bit sort of, and again, Barbara being a historian as well, she's interested, she's fascinated. And again, I love that as well, because like I said, not only adds to the educational side of it, but it also adds to the point of, it lends to sort of, I was going to say lends to the credence of the whole point of it, is the fact of anything sciencey, Ian can then jump in. Like you don't just have like companions that don't do nothing. There's going to be a reason to have them. There's a moment in this where one of the cavemen gets attacked, and Ian goes and helps him. Like, even though he's not a doctor, he goes helping because he's got a science degree that he can somewhat figure it out. And I'm sure in other episodes as well, whenever history comes up, Barbara will be able to have something that she can do as well. So I like that. It kind of makes there's a reason to the characters. The characters have already developed as people, and they've got something to do. They're not just there as, like, the Doctor says loads of sort of technobabble, and then they go, aha, interesting. There's like, no, they're actually sort of refined sort of characters. As for William Hartnell as the Doctor, I want to leave this one till last. No, actually, I'll talk about Susan quickly. I like Susan, but already she's grating on me a little bit, because all she does in this story is scream. She's constant, Doctor, Granddad, I'm like, really? Please. Like, even Ian and Barbara, and not so much with the screaming. And she's meant to be used to this. This is the thing that got me as well. And please don't come at me. Like, I'm not saying I don't like Susan. Like, it's the first ever episode of experiencing her. Like, give me time. So I can only talk for what I've experienced, but even Ian and Barbara, who have never travelled in time before, seem to kind of get used to it quite quickly. And yeah, there's a bit of screaming here and there when it's needed. But apart from that, overall, they're pretty calm. Whereas Susan, who is meant to be from the future, who is obviously travelled with her grandfather back and forth before, into the past, into the future, you would think that she would be used to this a lot more, where she'd be a lot more sort of cool and calm, like cool, calm, collected. Kind of like the Doctor. You don't see the Doctor like screaming all the time. He's very cool and calm, very cool cucumber. But she's screaming all the time, and that's a bit like, yeah, do you have to scream so much? That's only just a little thing, but overall, I enjoyed the character. As we're going back to William Hartnell as a Doctor, he was really, really good. He was really good as a Doctor. Like I said, at the moment, at the beginning, he's very standoffish, but as the story goes on, and he's trying his best to talk to the sort of caveman, he's trying his best to talk to them, trying his best to convince them of this idea of fire and leadership. And I think Ian makes the quote saying, it's the people in our tribe who know how to make fire is the least important person. And then the Doctor sort of jumps in and goes, yeah, he's right. That he's least important because we all know. So it's not as a big thing, because obviously in their tribe, the man that can make fire is the one who leads them all. He's obviously the smartest and the best. And Ian is like, well, no, really, you should bring the rest of the tribe in. And if everybody knows how to do it, then you've got more chance of survival. But the leader is like, I can't remember his name, but the leader of the cavemen is like, no. Only the leader knows how to do this. Only the leader should be doing this. So they're trying to sort of teach him. They're trying to change their ways. But again, they're still very primitive. They're like walking around toddlers. It's like, that's mine. I want that. Fire pretty. Oh, that burns. That sort of thing. But it works as an introduction to Doctor Who, and I don't think how else you could have done it. Like, you could have gone far into the future, but then it could have been a bit too much. It could have come off as a bit hokey. Whereas if you set it in the past, it's not only easier to make and produce, but also at the same stage, it also adds the credence of like, it's still in the past. It's very alien to kids of the 60s, still very alien to me now in the future. So it's going to be one of those, oh my God, they're back in time. There's cavemen. It's different. There's giant animals that are attacking cavemen and people. There's no cars, there's no planes. Like, it looks like barren. It looks like a wasteland. Really, it looks alien. It looks very different than what you're used to, which is fantastic. So yeah, first impressions generally really, really impressed. I really, really enjoy it. Like, I was taken aback, and I had a fantastic time. As for sort of the story, so to kind of give you the gist of the story, so Susan is in school. She's 15 years old. She's got two teachers, Ian and Barbara. And the episode starts with Ian and Barbara are basically talking to each other. He goes, have you met that sort of Susan girl in your class? And she goes, oh. And like, Ian's like, oh, you've had issues with her too, talking to Barbara. And Barbara's like, well, not really issues, but it just feels like this girl's like, she's really clever, but to give us a chance to make us, like us, the teachers, like Ian and Barbara, to make us not look silly, you can tell that she corrects herself, or she changes, but she's actually really, really sort of smart and talented, way more than she should be. But at the same stage, she's a bit odd. And like, Ian's like, what do you mean? I think Ian or Barbara says, what do you mean? And she goes, well, she's really clever. She's good at like the maths and history, and she knows a lot about science. But when it comes to knowing what currency we have, like a 15-year-old girl should know what currency we have and we use currently. And then she tried to cover herself where she goes the decimal system, which is what they used in America at the time. I think they still do now. And they're trying to figure it out, and they'll be like, oh, well, let's try to talk to her grandfather. So they basically get Susan, they follow her to this junkyard, go into it, end up meeting the Doctor, William Hartnell, and he's like, what are you doing here? There's no girl here. I don't know what you're talking about. They hear the Susan go, grandfather, what took you so long? Ian's like, well, no, I know she's here. I heard her. And the Doctor's like, no, go away, get a policeman. Tell you what, I'll stay here. I can't go. There's only one way out. You go and get a policeman and bring him back. Obviously, I know what the Doctor's like. The Doctor's basically, they'll going to leave, and then he'll get in his TARDIS and he'll just like vamoose, and he won't be here. Obviously, that doesn't happen. Ian barges his way in. They're inside the TARDIS. And the TARDIS set, actually, believe it or not, is actually pretty good. Again, for something from 1963, and obviously me being me and having to watch the revival and that sort of thing, and I've seen the different TARDIS consoles and TARDIS operation rooms, it's quite impressive to see. And again, it could be because it's black and white. I don't know. But seeing the TARDIS set from the 60s is actually generally really cool. Because I've seen it in color. Because again, I watched the David Bradley movie, so you get to see obviously in color what it would have looked like. But seeing it in black and white, it's like, oh, it does feel bigger on the inside. It feels spacious. I love the round things on the wall. I love the center console as well. How it's more scientific. It's more practical than just sort of a bit of hodgepodge, a bit of like, as you get with like David Tennant's sort of console, which I love. But instead of like being bits that is just, he's added on and upgraded it, this is like the early proto version. Like this is like newly stolen Time Lord sort of TARDIS. So it's still very much like how the Time Lords would have had it. And he's obviously he's added in a chair and a few other things, but it's mostly original, which I love that. I think that's really, really cool. And then Ian's like, let me go, let me go, let me go. Doctor's like, no, you know too much. I can't let you go. Susan, she's screaming. She's like, let him go, Grandpa, let him go. And Ian pushes Sync on the console. They go back in time. Next thing you know, they're in prehistoric Earth, and they've got these cavemen that like are basically warring tribes. So the gist I could get out of it, it wasn't overly difficult. It was a little bit hard to follow. But the gist I managed to get from it is the fact of you have the son of the chief. The chief was the only one who could do fire. He never told anybody else. There was an old woman who never saw him make fire but knew that he could. So because the chief has now died, his son is like, well, I'm trying to make fire. And he's got a bone in his hand and he's rubbing it again in his hand and he's doing it with it. He's like, this is how we make fire. And then the old lady's like, that's not how you do fire. Your father never did it that way. And he's like, well, then you tell me how he did it. And she's like, well, I never saw him. I think that old woman knew. I think she knew. She just didn't want him in power, sort of thing. Because there is a moment a little bit later when they get captured by the Doctor. And I think that one's in the Cave of Skulls episode. But they're in the cave and the older woman comes and she basically says to, the Doctor, like Susan, Ian, Barbara, she basically says to him like, you must not make fire, you must leave. And she tries to set them free. But while she does that, the son comes with his like love interest, his partner, his woman, as he calls her, and stops her and then ends up sort of throwing the old woman to the ground and then chases after the Doctor. So I have a feeling that she knew how to make fire. She just didn't want him in power, sort of thing. That's my sort of theory anyway. So the Doctor gets there. They take the fire, just like they think that the Doctor, because he had scientific equipment on him when he came out, that he can make fire. And it was like, look, I will show you how to make fire. I will. You just got to let us go. But they're like, well, no, you going to make fire. You're going to show me how to make fire. And then we're going to sacrifice you to the great orb. And obviously the great orb is the sun. So they worship the sun in the sky. So like the great god orb in the sky. So they're going to sacrifice you. It's like, and he's like, well, that's not going to bring back the fire. So they're trying to negotiate with these cavemen. But while they're trying to negotiate with them, you've got these two people. So you've got the son of the chief who is got the fire. He's trying to figure out how to make it. Then you've got this other guy as well, who is like, well, you can't make fire. I can make fire. I should be chief. I should be a leader. So they're having a fight with each other. There's actually a big sort of scene where they fight. So again, it's well choreographed fights. Again, it feels like you're watching a stage play, how well sort of choreographed the fight is. And it made me laugh. Every now and then you'd have these shots where you've got them fighting. Then the camera would change and be a cut of like one of the sort of the Doctor, one of the companions' faces, just giving that sort of ooh, sort of like quizzical, sort of like watch, as like it's meant to give the impression that they're on looking, that they're watching. But obviously we know that it was done in post, but still it's kind of funny as of that. So they have a fight. The one caveman, sort of the son of the chief, he kills the other guy, and he's like, well, I now need to know how to make fire, because if I can't make fire, then they're going to sacrifice you. They're going to sort of kill you, basically. So so Ian basically shows him how to make fire. There is a moment before this that they escape. Sorry. And before this fight, where they escape, the old ladies and they escape, and the one chief gets attacked, and then sort of Ian helps him, as I mentioned, and saves his life. Look, we saved your life. We'll show you to make fire. Let us free. And he basically goes back on his word. Basically, Ian and the doctor like making fire for him by basically getting. I think they get a piece of string on a which they connect it to a piece of wood, which they then wrap that around another piece of wood, and then they kind of push that thing back and forth, and it makes momentum to kind of get enough friction to make fire. But the caveman goes against his word. So I think Susan comes up with an idea. She picks up one of the skulls, and she picks up one of the piece of wood. She goes, look, if we burn this torch and we put it in the skull, we'll say, look, we disappeared as spirits, sort of thing. And that, obviously, the cavemen being cavemen, they're very simple-minded. So that works. So while they're being fascinated by that, they run away, get in the TARDIS. And then the cavemen realise, oh, it's just skulls. They lied to us. So they go to chase them. But they're late, so by the time that they get there, they see the TARDIS start to whoop, 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 disappear. And they kind of sit and watch. And then obviously they land somewhere else. And then the Ian goes, oh, we back home. And the doctor goes, well, I'm paraphrasing here, but the doctor basically goes, well, not necessarily. Like, I'd said I'll get you out of there, but I didn't say that I could get you home. And it's already that inkling, the fact of he doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS, sort of thing. And it makes you wonder, was it just luck that he landed in 1960s London where he did? You know what I mean? That he just happened to land there. It wasn't planned. And it just, again, it sows the seeds of the fact of the Doctor doesn't have full control of the TARDIS. The TARDIS, if anything, is alive. And the TARDIS basically takes the Doctor where he needs to go, not where he wants to go. So, they land on this planet, and the Doctor basically says to Susan, like, what's the radiation levels? And she looks at it and she goes, oh, they're okay, Grandad, they're quite low. He's like, all right, guys, let's go and let's look at this sort of where we've landed. And then they go off camera, and then the camera zooms in on the radiation gauge, and it slowly starts to tick up, tick until it goes into the red, and then it goes. And obviously that episode is the Daleks, so that's our first introduction to the Daleks. So I am looking forward to the next episode to finally get to see the Pepper Potts in their original first sort of episode, to see what they like. But yeah, overall thoughts, I was blown away. I was really impressed. It's really tight. It was well scripted, great dialogue, great characters. It all makes sense to me. And again, I love the fact that they went back in time for the first episode, because that's how best to convey to an audience and to Ian and Barbara the whole point of the show, the whole point of time travel and stuff like that. Again, it's very educational. So I thought it was brilliant. So I'm excited for the next one next month, when we talk about the Daleks. But again, let me know your thoughts and feelings. If you're a major Doctor Who fan, or if you've watched any of the classic episodes, let me know, what you feel about the Earthly Child. Like, let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you think my thoughts are wrong. By all means, everything is fair. Like I said, please go easy on me, because this is my first time properly dipping my toe in, this is the earliest I've ever been in Doctor Who. Like, the earliest before this was Tom Baker. I've never been any further back. So if I get anything wrong, or if I pronounce a name wrong, or anything like that, or if I don't get the point, or whatever it is I'm trying to say, please do let me know. But obviously be kind, because again, I'm learning as much as I can. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below on YouTube, or the comments down on Spotify. Let me know your thoughts. Have you got any tips and tricks for going into the Daleks, or any sort of things I should sort of look for, and that sort of thing. There is a special features on this, as I mentioned. There are commentaries for the pilot episode, and episode 1 and episode 4, but I couldn't get them to work on the DVD. I don't know why. I was going through the settings. I just couldn't get them to work, which was a shame, because the pilot episode was voiceover by Verity Lambert and Warwick Huss, which would have been an interesting thing to listen to. And episode 1 had William Russell, Carol Ann Ford, and Verity Lambert. And episode 4 would have had William Russell, Carol Ann Ford, and Warwick Huss. So I would try and do them in the meantime, trying to get them working. I would listen to my own time, and obviously give you a heads up when I do the Daleks. But yeah, I couldn't get them working, sadly. But either way, this was a brilliant first episode, and it's got me excited for what is to come next. So before we wrap things up, I want to do a little bit of trivia, because I managed to find some, and there's actually quite a bit of trivia about this story. So When this episode was first aired, parts of Britain were suffering a power failure. It was also the day after US President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Both of these factors meant the program was only seen by a disappointing 4.4 million people. Well, in a way, then that was disappointing. Nowadays, that would actually be pretty good. I know it sounds crazy, but if you think of it nowadays, not many people watch live TV. So if anything got 4.4 million nowadays would have been impressive. But obviously back then that would have been a disappointing because you've got to think there's only about 3-4 channels. And, if only 4.4 million people saw it, that's really, really bad considering should have been upwards of like 50 to 100 sort of million views thereabouts. I don't know, but it should have been high anyway. But it was repeated a week later before the second part. It was watched by 6 million people, so they managed to get the numbers back of people who wanted to see it. Susan remarks that Britain hasn't entered the decimal system yet. Britain would I'm going to be a hard word. Britain would decimalize the pound in February 1971 after a few years of preparation. Amusingly, at the time this serial aired, pretty much all of the rest of the Commonwealth had either already that word decimalized, like South Africa, or was in the process of doing so, like Australia and New Zealand. Susan's striped top belonged to Carol Ann Ford. It was part of an alternative costume she suggested for the character after it was decided to abandon the more adult, futuristic look of the unaired pilot. Ford's suggested outfit also included black leggings and boots, which were rejected for being too sexy, so jeans were worn instead. She would later wear the same striped top in the Great St. Trinian's train robbery in 1966. The first school scene was rewritten to reduce the tension between Barbara and Ian. In the original script, Ian says, "When I've had a bad day, I come in here, the staff room, and I want to smash all the windows." Barbara retorts, "It hasn't been a bad day." And Ian remarks, "You're just naturally like that." Barbara, "I hope not. I've had another kind of day, a very puzzling kind of day." Susan is reading a book about the French Revolution, puzzling over inconsistencies in it. In the final serial of the season, The Reign of Terror, the travellers actually go to revolutionary France, where she reveals it is her grandfather's favourite period of Earth's history. Ian and Barbara's relationship was originally much more overtly romantic. This was toned down by David Whittaker. The scenic designer, assigned to the serial was Peter Bracke, who originated the distinctive TARDIS interior set, but he eventually handed over this episode before being replaced by Barry Newbury for the remaining 3 episodes, as he was unhappy working on the program. After Barbara and Ian leave Susan alone in the classroom, the idea that Susan should do something mysterious was a late unscripted inclusion. In the previously recorded original version, Susan doodled in the book. In this version, it was decided to abandon the doodling and zoom in on the book instead. The design team asked for a book with an identical picture of Robespierre on the cover. I did wonder that, actually, by the way, because it was very weird. It felt very out of tone, because when I watched the pilot one by accident first, basically when they leave her alone, the camera pans down and she's got a piece of paper and she's doing ink blots, and then she puts the pieces of paper together, and then she basically draws like an octagon around it. And I was just like, but why is she doing that? And I thought, oh, maybe it's story porn. It never is. It never comes back. And I thought that was quite odd. And then when I watched the original first episode, when she gets the book of Robespierre, I was like, oh, so they decided to change it. So I noticed the differences. I noticed the changes. And I quite enjoyed that. I quite liked seeing the differences between the pilot and that one, how there's like, okay, that works, that didn't work. We're going to use this. We're not going to use that. I never noticed that she changed her outfit, to be honest, but I noticed the doodling because that seemed very weird. But again, this is why they did a lot of rehearsals back in the day, just to kind of get it flushed out. So by the time they did it, it all made sense. Anyway, that has been all the trivia that I can find. I had an absolutely fantastic time with this one. A lot of surprise, but I'm really excited for next episode. I'm really excited to get into the Daleks, to be on Skaro, to see the Thals, to see the Daleks, to see how it all began, see the beginnings of it, in terms of the show, not of the Daleks, but of the show first having their most iconic villains, their most iconic monsters, the Daleks. So I'm really, really excited. And this one was written by Terry Nation as well. And Terry Nation was just, he did brilliant. He was just brilliant. So I'm really, really excited for that one. And there's a lot of special features on this one as well. There's even a documentary about the origins of the Daleks. So I look forward to watching that. But we will get there when we get there. Thank you very, very much for listening. Again, please do give me your thoughts and feedback on this episode. I want all the feedback I can get, like from fans, non-fans, from people that have watched this and watched all of Hartnell. Please let me know your feedback. I want to know thoughts and feelings. If you like this episode, if you don't like this episode, if you prefer the Daleks, you think that's a better episode. Again, please do let me know in the comments down below. Also, you can follow me on Spotify. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Make sure that you follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you'll find me there. So I've been your host, Luke the Elder Bean. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure. You've been listening to the Howdy Beans podcast, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.